Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Matthew, also known as RedFlyer, and today it's super sunny out today here in Seattle, where it's been sunny and like 70 degrees all week. Everyone thinks it rains like all year until June. It's not true at all. It's been amazing here. And today I'm going to be bringing you guys a video with 8 things I really like or appreciate about my 2016 Ford Focus SE. I've owned this car for about a year and a half now. I bought it in December of 2016, so I feel like I can talk about it pretty well, and I've had a lot of experience with it. I've driven it about only 8,000 miles, but I don't go very far. And then I'm also going to talk about a few quirks and features about the car in pure Doug DeMuro style, so stay tuned for that at the end of the video. Let's get right into it. Okay, so number 1 is going to be all of the sport features that come with this car as opposed to a normal Ford Focus or other cars in this price category, kind of like different, you know, compact sedans, the pretty cheap low model compact sedans. And this is an SE model, which I assume stands for Sport Edition. That's what I always tell people, but I guess I never actually truly confirmed that or not. But I'm just assuming it is, because it came with a lot of sport features. It was an extra like $500 or so over the base Focus, and it was totally worth it. It came with paddle shifters right here, as you can see on the steering wheel. I have the red aluminum extensions, but there were these black plastic ones before, right there and right there. So of course I can control the gears while I'm driving, as well as a sport mode on the shifter. As opposed to low gear, there's a sport mode. It's not totally different from normal drive mode. I think it maybe makes the shifts go a little bit slower, so you can rev it up a little bit higher and like get that low end power before it shifts. That's really it. Maybe a little bit more throttle response, but you know, it makes me feel like I'm driving the car more fun. And the paddle shifters are a ton of fun. Of course, it's an automatic. That's a whole different video on why I chose an automatic over a manual, but it makes the automatic a lot more fun. There are also a few changes on the outside. I'll show you guys those right now. The most obvious change was, of course, the rear spoiler right here on the back of the car. Right along here, there's just a little lip spoiler. It's very subtle. It's not super noticeable, but it still makes a big difference. I'll show you from the side. Right there, just a little lip spoiler. That's one change. Again, it's subtle, but it's still a pretty significant difference. And the other difference is that I also have caliper brakes on all 4 of the wheels. Right down here, right there, you can see I have calipers on the right here. They're also on the back wheels. They're on all 4 wheels, as opposed to the base Focus, which I believe had them on just 2 of the 4 wheels. I don't remember if it was the front or the rear ones, but it only had it on 2 of them. And then the one final change is that this car also comes with fog lights in the front. I believe the normal Focuses don't. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I don't think the normal Focuses come with these fog lights right down here. We'll talk about those a little bit more later. But the Focus SE does come with that one, and I believe that was a change from the Sport Edition. Definitely worth it. Okay, now I'm inside the car, and the second thing I'm going to be talking about are all of the features on the car here. It has just enough features without being too overcomplicated, so it's really simple, but it's still pretty modern. And again, this car is a 2016, and remember that in 2016 it was not legally mandated to have a backup camera inside your car, therefore having a screen inside your car. It was not required. There are many cars that didn't come with them in 2016. Now I believe they all do, because it's required by law to have a backup camera, but back then it was not. So I have a screen here. It's fairly small, as you can see from the inside. I'm considering buying a giant Tesla style screen that's like this big. We'll see. I don't know. That might happen in the near future, so be sure to subscribe. But I do have this small screen right here, and it works well. It controls the radio right here. It controls your Bluetooth syncing with your phone. There's 911 assist. You can see your phone's battery and stuff actually too on the top. Time, temperature. It is not 81 degrees, by the way. That's because it's a black car with a black interior. But it's just enough, and it's not super complicated. Sometimes you get in these cars, like in my parents' cars and stuff, or even nicer cars that I've been in, where you sit down and there's like 18 different menu screens and settings and controls, and kind of like this camera, and it can be so complicated to find one little thing that you want to do, because there's so many different controls. And on here, it's just simple. It's not that complicated. There's one screen right there. There's one little screen in between the speedometer and the tachometer here that just shows you things like your gas mileage and your speed and things like that. Having a digital speedometer is essential in my opinion, so I'm really glad that's there. And then of course, the climate controls down here, they're really simple. One of them controls the power of the vents. One of them controls the temperature, hot, cold, defrosters, and then like the high vents and the low vents right here. Turn them on and off, and that's really it. That's all it is. It's super simple. It's super easy to control. I know how to do something right away. I don't need to dig around for it, but it's still just enough to keep the car looking modern and up to date, and it doesn't look at all like it's dated. Like if I looked at the inside of this car, I would think it's a 2018. I wouldn't know the difference between this and the 2018 one. And actually, I think they're exactly the same between this and the 2018 Focus. So I think it's just enough, but it still has a lot of different functionality, and it's definitely something I like about this car. And while we're inside the car, number 3 is actually the gas mileage and the price of gas for this car. If we look on the screen right here on the, in between the speedometer and the tachometer, I'll zoom in a little bit for you there and try and hold this steady with one hand while I scroll through. If we go down to average fuel, the last time I reset this was like 50 driving hours ago is what it said. So I've gotten 20.3 miles per gallon, which at first doesn't sound very good, but it sounds a lot better when I tell you that I almost never drive on the highway. The places I go daily, you know, I drive to school, I drive to work, I drive home, and I never really get on the highway. So I've only driven this car 8,816 miles, and with barely any highway driving, that's actually a really good gas mileage, especially the way that I drive too. Sometimes I don't speed a ton, but I accelerate quickly and things like that aren't great for gas mileage. Driving with the paddle shifters too and keeping it in lower gears oftentimes, which is really not good for the gas mileage. The fact that I get 20 miles per gallon driving solely in the city is actually quite good. And also this car takes the lowest octane fuel, so I guess that's, what is it, like 86 or 84, 82, something like that. I think it's 86. It takes the lowest normal fuel, so of course it's the cheapest, rather than like my dad's Q50 takes the 92 octane, which isn't that much more, but it's a little bit more per gallon, and it adds up over time. It totally adds up over time. So that's something else to consider. So the next couple things are actually going to be outside of the car. Number 4, I think I'm on 4, right? I think I'm on number 4. But the next one is going to be the looks of the car, which honestly, in my opinion, it is a very good looking car, especially when you compare it to other cars in the price range. I paid $17,500 for this car brand new, and if you look at other brand new cars for $17,000, the competition isn't very good. You're gonna be looking at things like, even the Chevy Cruze is more expensive than this car. I mean, you're looking at the Kia Soul, maybe the Kia Forte, but those actually look very similar to the Focuses. I think they might even share the same body style. I'm not totally sure about that. You know, things like the Honda Fit. It's a really cheap price range, and compared to all the other cars, I think it's by far the best looking one. Of course, I opted with the sedan because I think sedans just generally look better than hatchbacks in my personal opinion. But definitely the shape is really sporty. I love the shape of it. I really like the wheels. Of course, I plasti dipped the wheels black, but this is the style of wheels that they came with. These are the stock ones, just plasti dipped black. Before, kind of the inner lining was aluminum, and then the rest of it was kind of like a gunmetal black, and they looked really nice stock. I mean, I like them black, but they looked really nice before. I like the taillights. Of course, I've tinted the windows as well, but just the shape of the car and the styling, as opposed to many of the other cars, you know, the boxy looking cars in this price range and smart cars and things like that. I think this obviously looks way better, which honestly, it costs pretty similar in the price range, and actually it's cheaper than a lot of those base model cars like the Chevy Cruze and things like that. Even like the Honda, even the Honda Civic, I think is a little bit more than this car, and I personally think the Focus looks a lot better than the Civic. And the next thing I was going to talk about, which I think is the 5th thing, kind of goes along with this, is the storage space in this car. While it's definitely not a hatchback, it's not an SUV, I don't really have those needs, but it's just enough storage space, and it's just enough space for bringing passengers. Let me show you guys. My keys are in here, so let me open up the trunk for you. Then I'll open up the back seat. Of course, the driver's seat and the passenger seat. I mean, every car has those, but I know a lot of people who, one of my friends, he has a Nissan Altima Coupe. I have a friend with a Scion FRS, and cars like that, those coupes that it's just really difficult to get in the back seat. But in the Focus, the back seat, honestly, let's see if you guys can see this here. There we go. Seems like it's focused pretty well. The back seat is pretty roomy. Like, I can sit in here, and I put my seat way back when I drive. Of course, I have the seat covers here, but I can sit in here and still have room for my legs. My legs aren't bumping. I have a lot of room right here. It's actually quite roomy in the back seat, especially for a sedan and a decently sporty looking one, in my opinion. There's a lot of room in the back seat. And then if you look in the trunk back here, there's actually a ton of trunk space. If it's gonna focus, there we go. I don't know the total amount of cargo space in this car. I'll put it on screen right now, but it's actually quite good compared to what you would expect from a compact sedan like this, which is fairly small. It's a very light car. It's very nimble when you drive it, but it actually has a lot of storage space. And then finally, number 3 that I'm gonna be talking about while I'm outside the car, so I believe we're at 6 on our list now, I think it should be 6, is that this car, while it's pretty small, it's a compact sedan, it's decently sporty, it still has high suspension. It's not gonna be a super low car like, for example, my dad's Infiniti Q50 or any, probably any BMW or Mercedes or any of those cars. The suspensions are a little bit lower, where mine is just high enough that I'm not gonna have to worry about scraping whenever I'm driving anywhere. So say I'm pulling up in a spot and they have those cylinder blocks at the end of the parking spot, it's just high enough. I wish I could show you guys, there's none of them here though, but it's just high enough that I don't need to worry about scraping because it'll just go right over and then I can just back right up and it's not gonna scrape underneath here, as opposed to many cars, like this is too low so it'll be scraping. Sorry, I know the car's on, I hope this isn't too loud, but a lot of cars you'll have scrapes all along the bottom here from pulling up on those cinder blocks. But this car, I can't really show you guys, but I guess you just have to trust me. It's just high enough where you don't have to worry about scraping it. And if you clip a curb, these wheels are large enough that, or the tires are large enough and they're not the super low profile ones where you're not gonna damage your rims, you're not gonna curb the rims, and you're not gonna scrape at all, which is super nice and super helpful. And number 7 on my list is that while this is still a Ford Focus SE, and I will say the sedan is much less common than the hatchback, which is nice because you don't want everyone on the road driving your car. I see hatchbacks all the time, but I honestly don't see Focus sedans that often. But something to know is that this is actually a quite common car on eBay and on like different websites for aftermarket parts. Of course, I'm not getting any performance parts right now because I don't want to void my warranty. That's a whole different video. But just some of the things I can give you an example of are right here, these paddle shifter extensions. These were specific for the Ford Focus, and I found them super easily online, as well with these steering wheel accents right along here, specific for the Ford Focus, found them online. The stickers here, those could be for any Ford, but I think they're only, not the Mustangs and stuff like that, so they're actually not that common. Found them right here. These different pads in here that go on all the different storage compartments in the car, these were specific for the Ford Focus, of course, as it says Focus on them. And I found those online. There's a lot of different aftermarket parts. Again, these are just little cosmetic things. I'm not talking about performance parts, but I have looked, and there are performance parts online for the Ford Focus SEs. They're a lot more common for the RSs and the STs, of course, and that can be kind of confusing at times. But there are still parts out there for the SEs, and it's definitely not something that's going to be so unique. It's going to be really difficult to find it online, and honestly, you could find just about anything on the internet nowadays. But that is still something that I really appreciate about this car, as opposed to say I had an older like an older BMW or something. It could be hard to find for that specific model, like different parts for the interior, or well, parts, but different little cosmetic pieces, just little things to spice up the car that I really like adding, and they're really easy to find for the Focus, and that's just something that I think is really really good about this car and something I really appreciate. And the 8th and final thing that I'm going to be talking about is that this car, while I put a lot of effort into making it look nice and keeping it clean for the most part, it is still a Ford Focus, and that's somewhat liberating to know because I don't need to worry about getting a tiny little scrape on it or doing anything that might damage the paint. I don't really care because this is still a Ford Focus and it's a cheaper car and I don't need to worry about it. Meanwhile, if I was driving a really nice car with really nice paint on it and stuff, I wouldn't go through the automatic car wash. There's tons of videos online about how bad for your car the automatic wash is. People hate it online, but I'm gonna be honest, I go through the automatic car wash all the time. In fact, the pollen has been so bad here. If you can see on the interior right here, if you look closely, excuse me. See all these specks right here? That's all pollen from driving with the windows down. And this is on the inside of the car. This isn't dust. This is all pollen right here. And this is on the inside of the car. Just it's gotten in from when I've driven with the windows down. So let me tell you, on the outside of the car, it's gotten so dirty over the past week. Literally, just overnight, there'll be like a thin little layer, like I don't even know how high, maybe like a 0.5 millimeter high of pollen coating the entire car. It's terrible. So I've gone through the car wash every single day this week. I signed up for the unlimited car washes, and even just from going to the car wash a couple hours ago, there's already pollen here. I think you guys can see that decently well. The specks on the back, and the car wash does kind of a poor job washing the back. So I'll show you guys a little bit better over here. The camera decided to shut off for a second, I'm not sure why. But these are all the pollen marks along the back here, and I've washed this car every day this week. Every single day this week. And there's still all this pollen. Let's look up on the top here. I'm not sure you guys are able to see it, but I'm not sure how well you guys are able to see that, but trust me when I tell you, it's terrible. The pollen has been terrible, and I don't have time to wash the car by myself every single day this week. I don't have time for that. I don't have the money for that to go down to the self-wash and pay like $6 for 10 minutes or whatever to wash the car every single day. I don't have time for that. But what I do have time for is just going through the automatic wash in like a minute and having the car clean, and it's a lot more convenient and it's a lot cheaper too. And I don't care about ruining the paint on this car because still it is just a Ford Focus. It's not a super expensive car. It's not something I need to worry about. Same thing with the wheels. If I'm gonna pull out of the student lot, and the lot is so narrow here, let me tell you guys, it's terrible. It's made to slow you down so you don't speed out of there, but sometimes I go a little bit too fast and I curve the wheel just a tiny bit. I'll clip the wheel. I don't care because I know that this car, again, the suspension is high enough that I'm not gonna do any damage. I'm not gonna scrape in the front, and the wheels, if I curve a tiny corner of the wheel, it's okay. It's no big deal. I don't mind it. And it's really liberating because this isn't a super expensive car. It's not a collector's car. It's not a car that I've put tons and tons and tons of money into. I mean, you know, a car is a car. It's still a new car. I'm not trying to degrade it at all, but I'm just saying that I don't need to worry about the tiny, tiny little things that I would if I was driving, you know, some like $50,000 like Corvette or something like that. Like, you know, you're gonna put a lot more thought into it and be a lot more careful. And it's just somewhat liberating that I don't need to worry about that with my Ford Focus, and that's something I really appreciate about, and I couldn't not include on this list. Okay, so now I've gotten through all 8 of the things that I really like about my 2016 Ford Focus SE. As promised, before the video ends, I'm going to be showing you guys some quirks and features in Doug DeMuro style that the car that I've found over the past year or so on this car. So to start off, on the roof up here, I'll show you guys. The headliner of the car is definitely not this car's most high quality aspects. It's kind of cheap up here. You can press in and it almost feels like there's like some kind of pillow in here. I don't know if that might be the airbag. I don't totally know what that is, but then this thing right here, it looks like it should be one of those fancy things that fold down. You can put your sunglasses up there. All of my parents' cars have had those. Most of the cars I go in have them, but you can't open it. There's no way to open it. Like, it's not a vent. Air doesn't come out of here. I have no idea what this thing is, to be completely honest with you. I think it looks like maybe in the titanium ones it has the sunglass thing, but this one doesn't. I don't know what this thing is. Maybe it's part of the airbag. I'm not sure, and it's just kind of squishy up here. But it's just something really weird that I've noticed about this car, and I've always wondered what it is. If anyone knows, drop me a comment in the description down below. But a couple other things to show you. If you go on the center screen right here, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to shut the door maybe too, so it's a little bit quieter. If I go to average fuel, you can see on the bottom that there's actually a Ford Eco mode right over here. So if I go to the right, it's going to give me a score on my anticipation and my speed. So speed, I'm at a 5, I guess. I don't speed a ton, but I guess that's just the speed I normally travel at. I guess is good for gas mileage. And anticipation, I'm at a 3 out of 5. I was at a 4 out of 5 when I checked this like 10 minutes ago. I don't even know where it gets that from. And to be completely honest with you, smooth driving saves fuel. So I'm at a 3 out of 5. I should be at a 1 out of 5, to be totally honest. I don't speed a ton, but I don't really drive very smooth. So I'm kind of surprised by that. Speed, I'm at a 5, and that's it. This is C manual for more tips. So thanks, Ford. I guess it's going to teach me how to get better gas mileage, and that's why I don't get gas mileage, I guess, is my anticipation isn't very good. But something I just found kind of funny, and one more thing to show you while we're on the gauge cluster here, is there actually is a button. If you look down on the side here, I'm not sure I can get my camera, this button right here, there's 2 buttons for it, 2 whole buttons to increase the brightness of the gauge cluster and decrease the brightness. So if I press them, I'll show you guys right here, I'm pressing them right now, and it shows on the screen, instrument dimming, and I can put it all the way down. And I don't notice any difference. I mean, I'll zoom in on the instruments here. Now I'm going to put them all the way back up. Right now they're at the lowest brightness. I'm going to push them up. Okay, now they're at their highest. I didn't notice any difference. I don't know if you guys did. And I know it's during the day, obviously, and it's very bright. But I've tried looking at that at night before, and even at night, I really can't notice a difference. So I'm not really sure why they took up 2 whole buttons on the headlight display over here, like the headlight controls. But I mean, I guess it's a nice feature. And one more thing with the headlight controls over here is if we turn our headlights on, right there, our headlights are on. This button turns the fog lights on, which are in the front of the car. They're what I showed you earlier that were included with the Sport package. And they're actually not on by default. You have to press this button right here. So if you press them on, now you can see our fog lights are on. I drive with them on sometimes. It's just kind of a extra flex, you could say. And it does help you see a little bit better at night, in my opinion. But one thing to know is that the trunk release button is actually directly below the headlights. So one would think that if you're driving 40 miles an hour on a popular city road and you want to turn your headlights on, you want to turn your fog lights on, you better make sure you don't accidentally hit the trunk release and open up the trunk. This is something that I've thought about before and I've always been careful of, but luckily Ford thought of this. And if your car is not in park, I'm gonna put it in neutral right here. If the car isn't in park and you try hitting the trunk release, the trunk doesn't open. The trunk's not open, as you can see in the back there, because Ford thought about this. But if you put the car in park and then press the trunk release, the trunk is now open. Kind of a nice touch, just something small, something that probably most people wouldn't think about, but I thought about it and I was wondering it, and it's a good touch from Ford, gotta say. And that's just about it for the quirks and features. One more thing that, I don't know if every car has this, but I found it kind of funny when I first saw it, is if you look on the gas cap door right here, first of all, there is no twist off cap like many cars have, and the car doesn't have to be unlocked, so anyone could just walk up and access your fuel tank. But if you look right here, it gives you a little diagram on how to insert gas in your car. It tells you to pump the gas, and then it tells you to wait 5 seconds, and then pull the nozzle straight out. Thanks for that, Ford. It really helps me when I fill up my gas and I forget how to do it. That diagram's really helpful right down there. And that's about it for the quirks and features. So that's just about all I have for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to drop me a like down below and leave a comment what you want to see in the next video, or about what you enjoyed or didn't enjoy about this video. And thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Say that it feels right.